it is the very fundamental basis of plants survival and plants production. And now the scientists have identified there are 40,000 taxonomic species of soil bacteria which lives in spoonful of soil. So that much density of life present in the soil. And in addition to bacteria, there are other life forms which feed on the bacteria. Like there's different layers in the food chain. So the nematodes and protozoa, they feed on this bacteria. So when these, this is another one I want to tell you. There is a soil fungi which is called mycorrhiza, which acts as an extension of the root tip. So there is one famous mycologist, Paul Sturman. He has identified this fungal network runs in miles. So he says if you see an old matured woodland forest, you see the huge trees, canopy of the forest, but underneath there is a very thin layer of soil. Especially if you go to Himalayas. Recently I visited Himalayas. So you have a very thin layer of soil, and then you see a huge canopy of trees. So how it is possible? There is not much nutrients available in the soil to sustain the huge life there. So what he has identified through his radio tracer experiment. So these fungal network has spread in miles. They forages the nutrients in the forest from the remote zone and then brings back and feeds back to the roots. So it is like feeding, nursing back and forth between the plants and the microbiota there. So these, as I said, the smaller organisms which feed on this bacteria, their excreta becomes micro manure for the plant which is growing on the soil. So this is a typical food web which is present in a biologically rich soil. When this food, the organic farming is not growing plants. Organic farming is growing soil. So and inviting other life forms to thrive in your field. So it establishes a food. It's otherwise I would say a soil ecosystem. And then once the soil ecosystem is established, it behave like a family. So living together, working together, helping together, and then whatever the seed you throw in, so it is grown by this soil-fed diet, and all the it mobilizes all the nutrients for the plant to grow, and then it takes care of the health of the soil, the health of the plant, and the production. So the plant grows with healthy, produces healthy when we eat it, so we become healthy. So the another point I want to mention here is we'll see it here. Yeah. So what we do in our life is all humans, we have a linear approach. That means we take raw material from one place and then we use it and then we throw it in another place as absolute waste. There is no link here. So in the place where you take the materials becomes scarce, and then the place you throw becomes excess and pollution, unusable, and causes environmental impact. But in nature, you see everything is cycled. So there is no absolute waste. Everything is utilized. So what we got now, the concept of reduce, reuse, recycle, it is from the nature. So if you see here, nature, everything is taken locally, used locally, and returned locally. So this here, if you see the plants, animals, when they die, they become organic matter. So the organic matter is a food source for the bacteria, soil bacteria and fungi. So they work on it, mobilize, break down and mobilize these nutrients. Then these nutrients are taken by the plants which is growing on the soil, and then this goes on. So this is called sustainability. So we need to have sustainability in all walks of life, in our business, in our profession, in our life. So we have to be, if we want to sustain life on this earth, If you want to sustain soil health, if you want to sustain human health, animal health, health of all the biodiversity what we have, and so if you want to sustain the life on earth, so this got to be the solution. We have to be the ambassadors, we have to be the advocates, we have been we have to keep this in mind in all walks of our life. So that's why now there is green consciousness, green campus, everything is coming. That is the part of this. So compare and contrast. Now this modern agriculture has become an industrial activity. So what we do is we grow the plants by throwing this fertilizers, NPK fertilizers, So if you see a bag of urea, they mentioned that 45% urea. Anyone ask the question, what is 55%? The 55% is chemical fillers. So now the scientists say that the erosion of the soil bacteria happens, it's not because of the chemical fertilizer, it's more because of this chemical fillers, which is altering the pH of the soil. So that becomes hostile to this microbial life. So then the erosion takes place. So here, what you see, conventionally we use the NPK fertilizer, which is macronutrient, and we don't use much micronutrients. Now the scientists have identified there are 100 different micronutrients are needed for the healthy growth of the plant. It's almost like all the elements from the periodic table. So, because what happens when we use these chemical fertilizers, fungicide, pesticide, all biocides, the first thing what we observe is there is a de-link of this relation, the evolutionary symbiotic relationship, gets cut off. And so what happens? So there is a less root microbial interaction. So there is less exudate, plant exudate, less bacterial metabolic exudates. So it becomes a kind of orphan situation. So we are, and then second thing is this bacteria helps in texture of the soil. So when these bacteria are there, what it does, it makes aggregate. It's called micro aggregate of the soil. Then this fungi comes and then puts in a bigger bag. It's a macro aggregate, and also it runs this network acts as a water sponge. The water holding capacity of the soil becomes high, and because of this earthworm and other smaller insect activities, so it forms a channel, water channel. So when the rain falls, the water, there is a vertical movement down the straight instead of horizontal movement, erosion of the soil. So most of the you see the landslide and other calamities. What the scientists say that's the disruption of this fungal network. So that because this fungus holds this soil, and it provides a medium for the retention of water. So what we basically doing here now, what the country is facing problem is we are actually making the fertile soil into a desert. So the desertification of the soil is happening. So the solution here for this is, when you grow soil, when you boost the microbiota biome of the soil, so there are microbes which fixes nitrogen. They're like rhizobium, azotobacter. So those bacteria, they fix the nitrogen, and then it becomes these nitrogens are available in the soil. So there are like that potassium mobilizing bacteria, potassium bacteria, and then phosphate bacteria, and there are many bacteria. So the benefit here is you get all micronutrients, and then you have all this beneficial microbial products. Oh, thank you. I'll take this water. So, no, thank you. I'll take it later. So we get the wholesome benefit. So the plant grows with all the micronutrients, and then the produce will have all the nutrients, and then when we take it, so this forms the basis, our fundamental basis of our health. So this is the crux of what I am talking. There are 18 nutrients necessary for the health of the plant and health of the human. So this is sustainable. We need to have a sustainable approach in terms of cultivation, agriculture, in terms of healthcare. Because this forms a fundamental basis of our health. So we need to know what we are eating. So we need to know, we have to take charge of the food we are eating. We didn't know where it is grown, where it is transported, where it is produced, and then how it lands on our table. So it is like, you are saving money for future health. Same like that, health has to be saved every day. So this, how we can able to save our health? Through this means. So what I did is because I want to address, initially I wanted to address the fundamental cause of all the human disease. Then the solution came to me. The Moringa was my solution. So I coined it as a Moringa bullet because I was looking for a magic bullet. Now I realized that this is my magic bullet. So I started, recruiting, so gradually based on the Siddha literature as well as Ayurveda. In Ayurveda and Siddha, they give emphasis on 6 tastes, 6 rasas. The behind the taste, there are minerals, which is giving that taste. Behind that minerals, there are bacteria, which is mobilizing all this. So you see all these, the analogy. Like when I was in CMC Vellore, one of my professor, Zakaria, he used to give a lot of analogy that he knows. So he used to give a lot of analogy. Yeah. So like when he narrates about heart function and this conductivity, he compares with the army, and when he compares this. The GI motility compares to the mob movement. So same like that, I picked up that analogy so that I could see through these layers of this physiological phenomenon, which is very important, for our health, for our societal health, our country's health, and our environmental health. So this would be our real Ayushman Bharat. Because this is going to, and I would rather see, we are planning for the space missions. We are trying to send astronauts to space, and this would be the capsule which they will be taking it, and that will be, because recently I was in contact with the Israeli group. They were asking me to give 2 tons of moringa leaf powder per month. Then I was inquiring about, why you need it, and then what I learned is, these companies, they are supplying this moringa leaf powder to the Israeli army. Israeli army, they are surrounded by enemies. The soldiers are always combat stress. I was telling to Director Dipas this, you can take this lead. So what they are doing is, they are making this moringa leaf extract, giving it to the soldiers as an adaptogen. And there are many literatures. So these moringa leaves are, it has got a rich of polyphenols, quercetin, camphorol. This acts as a, this offsets the cortisol production. It is a anti-stress. So they are already being used. Yeah, it has hit the international market. So so much of export is taking place from India. About this moringa leaf powder. Well, I said I'm not interested. I have so many people to cater here, so I want to give this benefit to our own community.
Other leaf, one of my friends tried in the faculty at So what happened? The doctors told that his father is not going to live more than 1 week to 10 days. The brother in USA came with family, so they take part in last rites.
Okay.
And can you believe, just now I talked to him, he has taken to hospital, it's 2.5 years now.
Oh.
Only thing he gave some soup of this surepa leaves.
Surepa.
It is from South India.
Suseria lapa.
Or something like that. And that he said no medicine work, but this leaf soup work, and he is still
See?
It's 2.5 years.
Yeah, so why I was thinking, I was questioning myself, why it is like that? Why we are responding more to this herbal formulation as compared to the medical drugs? So I could able to connect myself, we all started as a agrarian, agrarian life. We were agrarian, leading an agrarian lifestyle, and for every problems, we were finding solution in nature. So during the evolutionary period, our body has adapted to these natural compounds. It has got a definite mechanism to use it, handle it, and then clear it from our body. So it is so familiar, when you go for a natural medicine and take it, the body responded so quickly because it's like, oh, I know this guy, and then now this within 50 years we are bombarded with so much artificial chemicals, and body doesn't know and doesn't have a proper mechanism to handle. So what it does is it just puts it in the form of, it tries to clear through kidneys and liver. When this, if it cannot able to take up, then it deposits in the form of fat tissue. So once it reach a critical stage, so this becomes, disease, and then it is now the scientists recently identified that this inflammation, allergy and inflammation is the mother of all disease. So that's my next topic. So I would compare the soil-fed diet with a fertilizer diet is the mother's milk versus the formula milk. Recently there are many discoveries made in mother's milk. There are active cells. The bacteria, the probiotic bacteria, they are passed from mother to the infant. When we all are born, we were sterile. We don't have any immunity. We were very prone to infection. So when we get milk, the first colostrum, when we get the milk, this all probiotic bacteria, they goes into the infant's gut, forms the first line of immunity and trains the body to build this immunity. So these guys, they are like trainees. They train the body and then get the immunity. Yes. So now here, this is the era of human microbiome. So researchers identified 10,000 species of bacteria living inside our gut. So I would compare the same thing with this plant root system. So that's a root system. This is our gut system. So if you see the number of bacteria versus human cells, it is 10 times higher. So it is not only important what you eat, it is also important what you feed to these guys, our friends. So if you see the number of bacteria, there are maximum number of bacteria are in the colon. It is a kind of fermentation tank. So these bacteria, what they do is when this food, after the assimilation of the food, when the waste, the undigested waste, when it passed through the colon, these bacteria, they just munch on it. This is their food source. So they munch on it, and what they do, well, of course, they use it for their life, and then the same like the bacteria, the root zone here in the gut zone, they produces vitamins for us. There are some vitamins B complex we cannot produce. It has to come from external source. So these guys produces vitamin for us, amino acids. There are very important amino acids and fatty acids are produced, and they are anti-inflammatory. They protect the gut line, the epithelial cell line. So they form our external immunity, and also it promotes the new blood vessel formation, improves brain function, improves cardiac function. These guys are part of our own immune system. So they are our friends.
Soil health card should have only right now the new micronutrients.
Yeah.
Have microbes?
You mean where?
Kind of microbes available in the soil is more important, or the nutrients are more important?
Well, the microbes are more important. They are the one mobilizes. See, because as I said before, we cannot assimilate.
He has submitted a proposal where he is going to see the microbes living in the soil.
Yes.
Microbes
Yeah. As I said, we have an intelligence of detecting. Our taste buds are much intelligent to identify these minerals in the form of taste. Like if you give organic produce to a child, it will identify easily this organic, because the child will tell, oh, this is tasty, this is delicious. So So this is the very important of our ancestral knowledge that as I was telling in Siddha Ayurveda, the Veda, they have cleverly incorporated all these tastes into the kitchen. So you say you know in India, in southern India also, here we have a spice box, you know. So we call it as Anjarapudi, the 5 spices. All these spices are nothing but these the micronutrients. You know, they have cleverly introduced these medicines in the food in order to get the wholesome nutrient. So, and also our body has got a clever way of identifying these nutrients. When you, like for example, now, you know, we take the polished rice, you know, and then the refined products and the fast food, you always want to take more, you know. Your quench is not there. Because why it is? Because this body is trying to identify the mineral, you know, want to satisfy the requirement through what you take, but still it is not satisfied. I have one variety of this indigenous rice, the Vasanai Sira Samba. I made it as a whole grain. It has got an intact bran and gem layer. So you cannot take 2 handful of this. You cannot. The body will stop. They'll say, "Oh, I'm done. I have got enough energy, enough nutrients." So I could relate this situation back to my village when I was growing, when I was small. Most, except my family, all were farmers. So they were doing cultivation. So every family had this, the cows and goats and chickens and everything. So they used to have a pit in front of their house. All the excreta is thrown into the pit along with all the agricultural waste and all. They periodically shifted to the field. Not only that, they were stalling the livestock over the field and they move it periodically, and then the land is just tilled and then cultivated without. They were not having any knowledge of this modern agriculture practices. So they used to get, you know, I still remember the taste and the smell of those vegetables and rice, and then the smell of the cow dung and cow urine. So those were, but now we are eating I am eating those vegetables conventionally grown. I don't have the taste. But when I started growing my way, so I could able to connect to my old memories. Like this was like went back to 5 years when I was doing first grade, maybe 6 years. I could able to connect it. And so these farmers were living like that, leading agrarian lifestyle. They were mostly, you know, in my place it's like rain scare areas. The water was limited, so they were cultivating these millets. Most of them were millets in rain-fed areas. So their regular diet was millets. So morning they get up and then there is be a porridge of one millet, and then they take it, go to the field. They work hard, they come back, and then they have another millet, this finger millet thing, and with the spinach dish, and they finish their meal. So only few times a year, like Diwali, Pongal, and some occasion, they had white rice. White rice, polished rice was luxury. Because those days the mills were not there. There were very limited mills. They have to take their produce to the mills and get it milled. So now, same farmers, same family, they are eating 3 times polished white rice, thanks to the public distribution system, free distribution. So they are eating. So now the rich man's diet has become a poor man's diet. It is killing all of them. Everyone is having metabolic disorder. Somewhat the other side, they have the diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Every family is suffering from it. They don't know what has happened. So they have become fallen prey to this.
People takes now brown rice.
Yeah, so now the millets have become rich man's diet. So
Very expensive.
yeah, very expensive. So what happened? I would technically say it's they moved from a high fibers complex carbohydrate diet to a simple no fiber diet, highly processed diet. What has happened? You know, they were leading a probiotic lifestyle. You know, in their field, in their cows and livestock, in their body, over the soil, above the soil, it was a probiotic environment. It was occupied by probiotic microbes. So now it's all dealing has taken place. You know, no one has got cows, bullocks, goats like that, and then they adopted this modern farming. So they have moved out of that agrarian probiotic lifestyle. So what happens? Because of that, the fiber is the food source for the gut bacteria. You know, they are the friends. They are the safeguards. They are the sentries. So what happens? So because we stopped taking high fiber diet, so we have robbed their food. So now it is very important.